Amp Media Production presents Gypsy Soul, your one-stop shop for letting out your inner gypsy. Join Denise Marsh as she brings on a variety of guests to share their artistic vision with the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Gypsy Soul. I'm your host, Denise Marsh, and I'm so happy to be with you guys on this Thursday. Very rainy Thursday here in Boca. It's been raining almost all day, and it's supposed to rain again tomorrow for the 4th of July. But hey, we need the rain, right? So I've been really very contemplative this summer and, thinking a lot about things, especially how I'm enjoying my summer. And then the 4th of July comes around for teachers, and that's like, we call it the end of the party because it's almost time to go back to work. So that's always a little bit hard for us. So just trying to soak up all of summer, get projects done, get started on things, You ever have that? Like you have a little vacation or a big vacation and your mind is all over the place thinking about the different things that are coming up. So trying to quiet my gypsy soul with all of that and have things to look forward to. And I do. And one of the things that I do look forward to is I look forward to thinking about things and asking questions about things. So I've become very curious, I'll say in my older age. And, when I get curious, I start to write more and more, which is a great thing because, I write poetry. So when I started thinking about how I could make my inner gypsy happier. And one of the things was to think about my feelings. When you talk to yourself and you get all metacognitive and you say, why do I think this? Why am I feeling this? What is this trying to teach me? And that's what I kind of did. And it ended up in a poem. Not a typical poem that I would write, but it just ended up in a poem with me being reflective and just thinking about a different side of things. And I wanted to read you the poem that came out of that. And it's actually in my new journal that I had this wonderful friend. She's also an author, Heidi Middlebrook, and she bought me this journal. I have to show you this journal, guys. It says, Find Your Own Path, and it's got the ruby slippers on it. And she did that because when my mother was alive, we used to watch Wizard of Oz all the time, and the ruby slippers was a big thing. We used to, play Wizard of Oz. We used to listen to, the original song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and the ruby slippers was always a big thing. So when she gave me this journal, it was a present. I was crying because, it brought me back to my mother, and she knew that, and just a good thing. So I started putting my poetry in here. So the poem that I want to share with you is called The Other Side of the Heart, and it has not been published yet at all, hasn't been anywhere. It's just with you guys, so you get to hear it first, so yay. The Other Side of the Heart. Hand-holding, hearts of fire, full of love, the heart has been typecasted and idealized. She's become a character, forced to play a part in everyone's story. But what if the heart had her own story? Perhaps another side, not necessarily part of a love story. What if it just needed a break? Maybe a vacation where it wasn't needed, could be broken, misled, abused, confused. Where would it go? What would it do? Where would it go? The other side of the heart might stump all of mankind. I hope you like that. It was very, very different. Has not been in a book yet, but will be one day. So switching gears, I'm very excited about today's guest, and I have to try to contain my excitement. That doesn't work because I'm probably going to start cracking jokes if I do that. But my guest tonight is very spiritual and inspirational. I actually met her at a book event in Boynton and immediately wanted to have her on the show. Her name is René McDermott. She's the author of the book, and I'm going to hold up the book, Raised to Life, The Story of Bethany. She's also an inspirational public speaker and translator. We're going to a short commercial break, and then you'll meet René. See you real soon.
Hey there, have you heard of the new show Gypsy Soul? It's hosted by the one and only Denise Marsh. Listen in as she helps you release your inner gypsy with the best in South Florida, with plenty of special guests, with their own talents to inspire your inner gypsy. Tune in every other Thursday on your preferred streaming platform.
Welcome to the AMP Media Futures Foundation. We amplify students by connecting them with industry partners to develop essential career skills. Please help support the interns of AMP Media Futures Foundation through a one-time or a monthly donation. You help us by providing them a hands-on opportunity in production, business, and communication. Your generous donation can help provide funds for equipment software and mentorship programs. Show your support by a message of your choice. You can donate by card, PayPal, or ACH services. Check out AMP Media Futures Foundation at ampfutures.org and help them power through the media industry.
And we're back at Gypsy Soul, and I'm your host, Denise Marsh, and we have the lovely, very beautiful René McDermott with us here today.
Hello.
And René, how are you?
I'm doing well.
You look great every time I see you. You just look calm and collected, and yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. I tell you, when you first asked me about being on the podcast, I was really honored, and so I'm excited to spend this time with you.
And we kept in touch.
We did.
We kept in touch on and off, and we were just in each other's lives.
Yes,
which I love so much, which is a big part of doing this show. I love getting to meet different people and making them shine. So, René, your book, Raised to Life, The Story of Bethany, is a memoir and a very big deal and very close to your heart. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to read a tiny blurb for the audience so that they can hear more about this powerful book.
Sure.
At its core, the true story is about the unshakable strength of a parent's love, a force that can push through unimaginable hardship. It reflects a universal human truth that our darkest, most desperate moments, the drive to protect those we love, can reveal reservoirs of courage, resilience, and determination we didn't know we had. I get all choked up when I read that because it was a very, very emotional book.
Yeah.
I mean, I savored it. I took my time reading it because there were so many components to it, so many elements, faith and, overall questions about mankind and questions about yourself. And please tell us a little bit more about the book. Your daughter Bethany was diagnosed with, and I practiced saying this so I'd say it right, so congenital diaphragmatic hernia. How did I do?
Right at birth. 100% A+. I know you've been working on that.
I've been working
beautiful.
on that.
Yes. Well, I'd have to say it was one of those situations that, I didn't even know I was pregnant. And so the journey was somebody had come up to me and said, I had this vision of a plus pregnancy test, it's the type of pregnancy test. And I don't know who's pregnant. Like all of my friends are going through menopause. And she was kind of a peculiar staff member that I worked with. Just really appreciated and respected her. But, she's kind of on the outskirts of where my comfort zone was. And I remember thinking, okay, well, good luck with that. And, sure enough, a couple weeks later, I found out, I was in a women's clinic because I wasn't feeling right and found out they handed me a plus pregnancy test, which I didn't even have control over what kind of test they used. And I thought, oh, Lord. And it really started with that and then became this I don't want to say out of body because that's kind of really putting it over there, but it was this like crazy, you could not orchestrate all of the details if God wasn't involved. Like it was just, everything came together and, I don't want to reveal everything about the book for anybody who wants to read it, but it was just this amazing spiritual journey that helped me to develop a greater faith in what I believed in. It showed me that I don't think it's unique because I think all of us at different times are caught off guard by things that happen in our life that maybe we didn't plan for, we didn't anticipate, whether it's something with the family or an accident or, who knows? I mean, the world right now, there's just so many things that you can go with. But it just showed that there, you step out in faith, there's so much there that you can pull on that you didn't even realize that you could bring to the table.
And this was a miracle. And people are very skeptical about miracles. What do you tell people when they're skeptical about miracles? How do you speak to that?
Well, it's so funny. There was a really wise person that I heard something from, and he would say, you really are not there to talk anybody into anything, because as soon as you talk somebody into something, somebody else is going to come and talk them out of it. The only thing I can do is talk from my own experience, and I can say that I myself question things like miracles, and I experienced it. It was, she was diagnosed to die on arrival, and I was, encouraged by the doctors to abort her. Just scrap this and try again. And, it's that deep knowing that I was like, God kept saying, no, there's a plan here. I'm doing something here. Hang in there. And I didn't even have a ray of hope until I was about 6 months pregnant. But, God showed up in a big way. And
you highlighted that so much in your book about how, I remember you talked about being in the shower. That was like the only time that you could have like private time, and you could pray and you could think and kind of like hide away from anything that would get in the way of your faith.
Yes.
And it was so emotional to read that and powerful.
When you talk about like, what is my experience with writing a book? I never wrote a book in my life. Never wrote a book. I did some grant writing when I was a director. And, I had never written a book, but my favorite author is Francine Rivers. And the thing that I loved about her stories is you really felt like you were experiencing what the characters were experiencing. And although mine was not a fiction where I was creating something, it was my own experience. So when I went to write it, I thought, the only way to really know what I was going through would be to be vulnerable. So, if my struggles were when I was in the shower, you got to experience, what I was going through at that moment. And I was really excited to see that it resonated with people that read it.
I cried.
That's what many people have said.
Very powerful.
It's funny. I cried reading it afterward. Like, I think there are certain parts that still heal from difficult experiences. I think you kind of retouch on stuff from the past. And
you relive it. I read that once, and I've talked about that.
I didn't do it when I was writing it.
Yeah, but when I
was writing it, I think I was so into, like, I wanted to make sure that I remembered everything.
Your focus was different.
I was more into the technical part of it, but when it was all done and then you read back over it, I kind of,
wow, I went through this.
It was a healing journey for me.
Very, very therapeutic.
Something I didn't expect it would be. And so,
and now it'll be healing for someone else.
I hope so. I mean, I think that's, why are we here to go through some of the difficult things that we go through if we can't utilize our darkest moments to maybe lift somebody else up, that it's their turn to go through it? Because the human experience is very common for all of us. And it's funny now, they didn't have it back in the day. Like, I'm aging myself, like they didn't have Facebook. They didn't really have the internet. We were playing Atari, those... That wasn't even a real game. That wasn't even a real game back then. But nowadays, you've got Facebook, you've got support groups. You get, I'm watching people starting on the journey that I had, 28, 29 years ago, and just so excited that there's a venue to be able to share these stories to encourage the next.
Also that it's okay to share them, right?
Yes.
Things were taboo in the past, like you didn't talk about certain things, or you were afraid to talk about things, but maybe people wouldn't understand, or they misunderstand you, or what you were thinking, or what you were feeling.
Right, and a lot of the treatments were not even available back then. And now they are, and so the more you can share your experience, because my daughter was a first group of kids that were unsurvivable that now we're starting to be survivable because of the advances in medicine, and so that was exciting, and to be able to share it to the next generation I think is important.
And I'm going to skip around with my questions because when you talked about that, you made me think about that there were some very incredible doctors some medical staff and doctors that were very instrumental, literally,
Yes.
in this journey. Did you want to talk about that?
Sure.
For a few minutes, or-
It's funny. And I know I keep coming back to, like I said, it was just such a big spiritual journey for me. I mean, God just put the right people in my life. Had my doctor, my OBGYN, Dr. Sherry Matosa, who's in St. Augustine, had she not identified the diaphragmatic hernia that my daughter had at that 20 weeks, we wouldn't have had that time to search and find somebody that specializes in it. And the problem is this: when she was born, she looked like a normal baby. She didn't look like there was anything wrong. But had we not known what was going on with her, they would have spent all their time trying to figure out why she was not breathing, that she would have been unsurvivable. So the fact that we got the OBGYN that I had specifically all of this experience in high-risk pregnancies and picked it up right away and was so aggressive with moving it along and starting to get me on the path to finding some answers.
And they had to fly you to the
that was
hospital.
a blessing.
That was some scene. I go, the scene
Yes.
that you built up in the book. This really happened, that you had to be flown to the hospital.
Yes,
to
and
deliver
it's
Bethany.
funny, I recently sent Dr. Matosa a copy of the book, and I said, you've had so many patients, I'm not even sure if you remember me. She sent me back this beautiful email of saying, I totally remember.
Oh.
And it was interesting to hear her side that I'd never heard before. She said, I remember being on the roof of the hospital crying, watching you leave in the helicopter. And so it was interesting. It impacted everybody around us. So we had that. We had, there was no hope for her. So then we found out about a doctor in San Francisco. I lived in St. Augustine at the time, on the whole other side of the United States, that was doing experimental intrauterine surgery. So we flew over there to test for that. And then wound up with a doctor that was about 2 hours away from where we lived. He had not been published yet, but had amazing numbers. And now he's got the first congenital diaphragmatic hernia, department out of Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida. So
you were responsible for that. If you think about it, you were the catalyst for that.
Well, I don't know if I would take credit for that, but I was definitely there at the beginning when he was first starting. And it's funny because I said, I think you're 2 hours away from me. How have I not heard from you? If my brother-in-law, who's a doctor, had not found him, I wouldn't have even known he was there. And he said, I just haven't been published yet. So like I said, every step of the way, God just got us to the right people at the right time. And it just wound up being a beautiful outcome. So.
And it could have gone in so many other different ways,
Yes.
And you kept trusting, and even when you didn't want to trust and you were scared, and you're talking to, it's very spiritual, to God in your book, please tell me the right thing to do, please make this happen how it's supposed to happen. And it's very poignant, it's very beautiful. And even if someone reads it and they're not religious, and I'm not religious, I'm very spiritual, it really makes you a believer. I mean, how could you not? When you read this, it makes you, think about, okay, there is a higher power, there is help for me, and I just think it speaks to everyone, even people that
absolutely,
that don't have
and it's
faith.
been really nice because there are people that have read it that either believe in maybe the same faith that I do or don't, but they really connect with the story and connect with. I think all of us reach out in faith to something when we're struggling, and I wanted to share my experience. We're each to our own to make decisions of what we're going to reach out to, but I just felt like it was really important to share. I mean, even just the weird thing, there was a nightmare that I had that I literally had for several months, the same thing every night. There was just a lot of things, and like I said, I'm giving little tidbits. I don't want to tell the whole story, but it was just such an out-of-body experience. I knew when my daughter took this picture of herself, actually, and I looked at the picture, I thought, boy, that was a really beautiful shot, Bethany, that you took of yourself. And I saw that picture and how soulful her eyes were, and I thought about everything that we went through for her to be survivable. And I knew at that moment that I needed to write the book, and that needed to be the cover.
And Bethany's all grown up now.
She is.
Very beautiful. We actually have a picture of her
Yeah.
that we'll put on in a few minutes. We have a beautiful picture to put up of her. How old is she now?
She's gorgeous. She's 28.
28.
Yeah, she's 28. I have her. I have an older daughter. But she just defied all the odds. They said that, she's not going to be able to eat spicy food. She'll always be a bland eater. She's my Italian sub girl.
See, you just never know,
They
right?
said she'd have physical limitations. She's like a yoga teacher that does all the inversions and all that crazy stuff. Just really proud of her.
Where can people purchase this amazing memoir? This book?
So I have a website, RenéMcDermott.com, which basically leads you to Amazon, which is where it is. It's also on Barnes & Noble. And I've started putting it in some select outlets, not necessarily here in South Florida yet, but I'm looking into places. It's up in Georgia, but those two places are the best place to find it.
Do you think you'll ever turn it into an audiobook? I was thinking about that the whole time that I was.
You know what?
reading
So
it.
there are two things. Yes, I definitely want to do an audiobook, and I'm really blessed because my stepson, that's his expertise, is audio visual.
meant to be.
Yeah, and he's offered to help out with that. So
I could totally see that.
we will work on that. And there's been several people, and it's funny in the reviews that a couple people left on Amazon, and even talking to me face to face said, this is something that read like a movie.
That was that's what I was trying to bring up. I could see it.
And my husband has said that
And the
many
imagery,
times.
everything is very, very visual. the whole time
Yeah,
you're reading it.
my husband has said that many times too.
That's so exciting.
So I'm just kind of taking one opportunity after another as it presents itself. My thing is just to share the story, and wherever it goes, it goes. But that's why it was just such an honor that you asked me to be on here.
Well, this
So-
story needs to be shared. And in fact, I think you had told me that you're getting this very special award in California, like full circle, coming back to California from before Bethany was born.
Right.
So now, do you want to tell the audience?
So this is how it happened. So I had never written a book before. So, obviously whenever you try something new, there's this, all right, I'm going to do it. But then there's that part of you that's like, yeah, am I good at it? Or is this, going to be kind of like the person that thinks that they can sing, but everybody's like, please don't. So I had entered it into a competition, and it won for a category. And so from there, we went to the next level for Author of the Year, and I won as a finalist for Inspirational Memoir, and this is through International Impact Book Awards. And so their award ceremony is in October in Hollywood, California. It's going to be in the hotel right next to where they have the Oscars, and we get all decked out. And so I'm bringing Bethany with me, and what's really interesting about it is I've only been to California once. And it was when Bethany was in me, and I was looking into that experimental intrauterine
Getting
surgery.
goosebumps. It's
So
so
this
beautiful.
is the next time I'm going to California. This time she's going to be with me by my side, and going to get dressed up. She's
outside of you now.
Yes, and they want you to kind of deck out. They're trying to make
I can't wait to hear about
They're
that.
really investing in it, like they want it to be the Oscars for book
it's a
authors.
big deal.
Yeah,
it's a big deal. I'm excited for you.
So I'm
You'll
the
have to
mom
tell
and the
us when that's
grandmother,
on.
so I'm going to have
Will that
like
be on
something.
TV?
They do televise it, I think, on ABC 15. You can if you look at International Impact Book Awards,
I'll
you
look
can
it
look
up.
that up on the website, and it'll show you where they're going to play it and a little bit about the award system. They've just been a wonderful group to work with.
So I don't want to run out of time, but I do want to ask you. I think you mentioned that you're working on something else right now. You're working on another book?
I've just really felt led for myself to do memoir writing. And, I was talking to you before, like, I don't know if it's I don't want to say curse, a blessing, or I don't know. There's been a lot of different things that I've had to go through that I've got a lot of material to pull from. So, especially for both of my daughters, if you have more than one child, you're like, you definitely highlighted Bethany's story, and my oldest daughter has a very interesting story for her. She was diagnosed with dyslexia, and she wound up being taught for a period of time by a teacher that was deaf and blind and dyslexic, who was a gifted educator. And so I wanted to tell her story, but with hers, do the research to give some of the latest things about dyslexia. You know, there's a lot of kids that struggle with that, and just to show some of the things that are out there and help parents that are experiencing a child that has one.
Maybe you'll do a book with both of them, and maybe you'll do a book and they'll each have a chapter in a book as adults. I mean, there's so many possibilities.
Yes.
But I mean, you'll have to come back.
Yeah.
You'll have to come back on the show, because 30 minutes is not going to be enough time to talk about all the amazing things that you've done and that you're going to do.
Well, thanks.
And I want you to come back too and talk about this award ceremony, because I'm excited about
Yes,
it.
maybe Bethany can be with me. She actually wrote the foreword to the book. So
Did you want to read anything from the book? Or just leave it up to everyone to
I could, if you want me to read something
quick. Something quick.
I know
maybe.
that if I just think that the impact is Bethany's words more than anything. She's just such a beautiful writer. A couple people who've read it have told me, I really feel like there's going to be a second book to this story, and I think your daughter's going to write it. And that may be true.
So we're going to hear just a tiny bit.
Yes. So
Okay.
she said, this is Bethany writing, "The story you're about to read, the words carefully curated by my mother, is the beginning of my life story. I grew up understanding that God had chosen to work a miracle for me. We all have moments that act as catalysts for tremendous change or a distinct shaping of our lives. My first catalyst happened before I was born. This true story is the initial shaping of how I viewed God and the world around me. Another catalyst was when I started my intentional walk with God at 16, and the most recent catalyst, a motorcycle accident at 90 miles per hour that by God's grace and protection alone I walked away from practically unharmed. God's provision is evident throughout my life as He combats the inevitable brokenness of this world on my behalf and keeps me from harm." And the last thing that she wrote, and the thing that I think was really impactful, she said, "God has a specific plan for us and will bring it to fruition." How confusingly beautiful.
I love the confusing.
Yeah, and wherever
Well,
your faith is, I think.
I want to meet Bethany one day. We'll have to do something with that, because she's incredible. And I feel like I know her. I know that sounds a little bit odd, but like through the story, but René, I wish I had another half an hour with you, and I have a feeling, I know you'll be back on the show one day.
I would love to.
But thank you so much for sharing your miraculous memoir with us. A lot of alliteration there. I believe you gave all of us a sense of healing and faith and awe, if anything else. So I wanted to thank you so much for being on Gypsy Soul, and I wanted to thank everyone for spending this very special time with me, my Gypsy Soul, and with René and her Gypsy Soul.
Thank you.
Thank you for your loyal support in my life. I hope you all stay safe tomorrow on the 4th and do something either by yourself or with a loved one, and embrace your inner gypsy. Stay away from the dangerous fireworks. And if you have animals, keep them safe, because I always hear about the animals, getting scared with the fireworks. So keep them safe. I love you all. I will see you again on the 17th for a magical guest, and then a bonus episode on the 31st. So I love you guys. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for sharing my show. I hope you have a great 4th tomorrow. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Gypsy Soul. Make sure to stop by next time for another enlightening show. A show that was produced by Amp Media Productions and hosted by Denise Marsh.